Watertown High School, and we're thrilled that you're here with us tonight. Tonight is really about laying that groundwork for you for a successful, kind of as a beginning transition to the high school. We want to make sure that we answer any questions that you have and introduce you to some of the course offerings that your student will have opportunity to take while at Watertown High School. Our goal here tonight is really to assist you to better understand the whole registration process. It might be new to some, and it might be old hat, but there might be some changes too, so we're just glad that you're here. Hopefully we're able to give you some tools to better assist your student as they register at the middle school starting this week. Here tonight, just before we get started, I'm going to introduce a few key people for you that are going to share some information. First, I'd like to introduce our assistant principals in here yet? Yep. Right over here, we have Mr. Scott DeBoer. He works with our students in the letters A through G, but he really can work with anybody. Mr. Taranis is not here tonight. He would have students that are letters of the alphabet H through O. And then finally, Mr. Bastian, he has our P through Z. So just to kind of put a little face on that for you, if you have questions, you can always reach out to them. We also have our counselors here who are going to lead the presentation here for you tonight. We have Ms. Bethany Hotchkiss, who works with students A through G. Mrs. Erin Fowkes, who works with students that fall under H through O. And then finally, Mrs. Heather Fisher, who works through P through Z. Also, where'd Rachel go? Right in the back is Rachel Anderson. If you call the Student Services office, you will get her as your first contact, and then she will help direct you to any answers to questions or get you in contact with the right people. Finally, tonight we have Mrs. Chelsea Brink up here in the front and Mr. Scott Walker. They are part of our CAA, our Customized Aero Academy, and they're going to share a little bit about that program. If you're not familiar, we will also be able to answer any questions that you have afterwards tonight. Tonight, again, thank you for coming, and we're going to go ahead and start with our evening with Mrs. Fowkes.
Apologies, I'm kind of short, so they gave me a tire to stand on, so I'd be able to be seen. So, good evening. We're so delighted you're here. My name is Mrs. Fowkes, and as Mrs. McClellan said, I am responsible for students in the alphabet H through O, so I get to work with those kids, and then our other counselors will work with other students in their alphabet group. I think high school is the best time ever, and I'm so excited to get you guys in our school and in our courses. So I am supposed to talk to you about the Northeast Technical High School classes. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, Mrs. Anderson is going to send out an email to all the students. Students need to open up that email during their advisory, and they're going to be allowed at that time to select courses that they may be interested in taking at Northeast Tech next year. The thing is a lot of the courses are already full. So I want to tell you that the ones that are available is we have Science Tech has room, we have Business Tech, which has room, we have Working with People, and we have Careers that Build. Those all have room in them. However, they're like, how many? 10 other courses that'll be on that list. If you really want to try to get into them, sign up, because it's going to be the people that submit their forms the quickest are going to be on a waiting list. And as students change their mind, which they do a lot of the time, there will be openings that will become available. So if you register for it, you could still get into it even if you don't show that you're in it when we come over to register you on Friday. So don't get discouraged. It's a phenomenal opportunity. Feel free to register for those courses as need be. Now, you're only supposed to register for 4, so please try to keep it limited to that. We would really appreciate it if you could do that. That happens tomorrow morning at 8:30. On Wednesday, Ms. Hotchkiss, myself, and Mrs. Fisher are going to be coming over to the middle school, and we will be coming to each of the social studies classes and talk to the 8th graders about the different courses you're going to want to take, about how to sign up for different things, and just things about the high school that you may or may not already be aware of. Some students have older siblings. They don't always tell the truth, so don't always believe those brothers and sisters. Or some of you are the first ones to come to the high school. I know it's scary for the kids. I know it's also very scary for the parents. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. So on Wednesday, we're going to be coming over to the middle school. Students will be filling out their registration forms at that time. I'm pretty sure Mrs. Fisher is also going to do this, but then they're going to take them home.
After the session, I'd like to say that if you raise your hand, I could call on you, but I can't really see anything, so we'll address those at the end. And then our dual credit presentation, we do those more in depth for our sophomores and juniors. As a junior and a senior, your student will be eligible for dual credit classes, which is college level classes taken while you're in high school at a pretty deep discounted rate. There are requirements that students have to meet for that, and so that's just something that I want you to be aware of, because as you know, day one of their freshman year, that's when they start building their GPA. And there are GPA or testing or scoring requirements that they do have to meet. And then Scott and Chelsea are going to talk about Customized Aero Academy in just a little bit. So we're going to jump to you guys don't have these pages, but I do just want to kind of outline the pages in the registration book kind of break down by grade level. The class offerings, you can either choose between English 9 or English 9 Accelerated. And the registration book actually breaks down each core content area as well as the elective areas for you to kind of review, look over. Maybe your student isn't sure what a class entails. They can also go into the registration book and read about the class descriptions so they have a better idea of what they're registering for and what they're getting themselves into. You can feel free to review that at any time. Maybe after your student brings home their registration sheet on Wednesday, you can go through it with them and kind of get an idea of what it is that they're going to be able to register for. And then we also included some planning sheets. So your student is going to get, if you look at the second part of the handout, your student is going to get a sheet like this on Wednesday that is going to have a backside, and they're actually going to fill out and put in pencil the classes that they want to register for, okay? Then they're going to bring this home for you, and you're going to be able to talk about it, and then your signature, it's not this exact one, but you'll have a signature spot on that sheet so that we can use this as like a backup for when we come into the classroom on Friday and actually get them entered into their academic planner. You'll also notice that on the back page, there's a 4-year planning guide. We have a lot of students that they want to be able to kind of map out what their high school career looks like. And so you can feel free to use this just as a guide to get an idea of credits and classes and space and things like that. Okay? Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a sample schedule. We haven't done this in years past, but there's some changes with curriculum and placement of classes and things like that. And so sometimes it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around, especially for students at the middle school, because they're on an 8-period day. The high school is on a 4x4. So what that means is we have 4 blocks a day and 4 quarters a year. I'm just going to kind of show you. This is a sample schedule. The only thing that's missing out of there is advisory, which falls between 3rd and 4th block. It's a 25-minute daily time period, much like the advisory period that they have in middle school. It's just at a different part of the day. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to kind of talk about what a sample schedule might look like, because with some changes to some curriculum, this is going to affect more students. So you'll notice that block 1, 2, and 4 are split in half. At the high school, we also have what's called skinnies. where a student attends a class for 45 minutes, so it's a half a block. Depending on the number of credits that that class is worth, it could either be for a half a year or for a full year. You'll notice that up here I have Algebra 1 being a skinny all year. That's a change that's coming next year for the incoming freshmen. Accelerated Algebra 1 and Algebra 1 are going to be full year classes, so they'll have those math classes for a full year for 45 minutes a day. If your student is in an accelerated math track and they maybe are going to like accelerated geometry, that's going to look a little bit different, but the majority of students are going to be impacted by this skinny schedule now, and so that's one of the reasons we wanted to highlight it. There we go. You'll notice that I filled in a biology. So biology is a 1-credit class. It's a freshman requirement. And what we as counselors try to do is we try to balance the student's schedule as much as possible so they're not overloaded one semester and maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say bored, but bored for the other semester. We want to make it balanced so they have about the same or an equal amount of workload both semesters. So then I put speech in there because that is a freshman requirement as well. They can choose between speech and debate. So this particular schedule, I just did speech. English is going to be a full credit class for a full semester. Accelerated World Geography is also going to be a skinny class. So anytime a student has a skinny class scheduled, they have to have another skinny class to go opposite of it. If there's not another skinny class scheduled, they can elect to do like a short study hall, like a skinny study hall. But if they choose Accelerated World Geography, they will also have the option of doing that as a skinny as well as non-accelerated. But the non-accelerated would just be for half of the year because it's a half a credit. So then we added an intro to art because they are going to have some elective options. Intro to art is like the segue class. They have to take that before they take any other art class. So you'll notice on this next slide I put drawing down there. And then on this version, we did an elective of Spanish 1. Spanish 1 will also be offered as a skinny. So there's lots of different combinations that may work for your child's schedule. That's one of the reasons that we suggest kind of mapping it out on that sample schedule, just so it's a good visual for the student to be able to recognize how their classes could look, as well as, as a parent to try to process that. And so you'll notice at the bottom, there's 2 open blocks that don't have anything in those. If your student maybe registered for a Northeast Tech class, those could be filled in those spots. If they didn't get into those classes, they could fill that with a study hall. There's a lot of different combinations, and so if you have questions, the counselors will definitely help when we're in the classroom at the middle school on Wednesday and Friday. I just wanted to give you an idea of what skinnies were and how those looked on a block schedule. So, I am going to wrap up my portion, and I will have Mrs. Brink and Mr. Walker. Do you want to come tell everyone about CAA? Just you?
Good evening, my name is Chelsea Brink and I'm a science teacher in the Customized Aero Academy. We visited the middle school last week and saw the 8th graders in their science classes to talk with them about CAA, but we wanted to share some information with parents tonight as well. So CAA is an option that is available to students at WHS. The program started about 10 years ago with about 40 students, and we have grown to about 300 this year in grades 9 through 12. If students choose to be a part of CAA, they'll join us for their core classes, so their math, science, social studies, and English. They will still go out to the traditional classroom for a lot of the classes that Heather mentioned, the arts, the PEs, the music, foreign language, those types of classes. But for those core classes, they'll come to our area, and we've got about 5 classrooms kind of in the middle of the school that are connected. And students have the flexibility to float between some of those classrooms as schedules allow. So CAA courses are taught using a combination of individual instruction as well as small group and large group instruction. So some days will look a little bit more structured, so when they come to their classes there will be set activities like a lecture or a lab or a group activity, and other days will allow for a little bit more flexibility. So it wouldn't be uncommon for a student in my biology class, if they are where they need to be working on an English paper for Mr. Walker's class, if that's what they need to, how they need to allocate their time. Oftentimes people will describe CAA as a work at your own pace structure, and while that is true, deadlines are still in place to ensure that students are still meeting goals and making progress. And teachers are available to teach and guide students every day when they're in the classroom. For many students, that flexibility means that it opens up some time later on in their schedules for things like dual credit courses or AP, or some of those career and technical education courses that Heather talked about. For other students, it means that they can focus their attention on courses that they might struggle with a little bit more. And so the flexibility just allows students to kind of choose what they're working on and when they're working on within reason, as long as they're still making progress. There is an application process for joining the program. So the sheets look like this. Some of you might have seen them at your house. Some students picked them up last week. If that is something that your student is interested in, I do have several copies tonight that you're welcome to come up and grab. If you haven't seen one, or if you're interested in learning a little bit more, there is a QR code on there that you can scan with your smartphone as well. The applications are due to Mr. Beekler by next Tuesday at the middle school, and then they send them over to us to review. And Mr. Walker and I will be available at the end of the meeting if you have any questions or if you want to pick up an application for your student.
If anybody has any questions that they want to ask, feel free. I will do my best to see you. Otherwise, we'll probably just come down on the floor, and if you have individual questions, feel free to just come up and kind of talk things over with us too. So if you don't have any questions, you're free to leave, and we'll see your students on Wednesday.